My guest today is J. Paul Haynes, CEO of eSentire. Welcome, Jay.
Glad to be here.
Jay, what is the elephant in the room?
The elephant in the room, and as controversial as it might sound, is that security systems just don't work 100%. They're not infallible. And it's the denial of coming to terms with the fact that you might be compromised. So we have lots of great technologies, but there's little cracks and holes that stuff can leak through. So the elephant in the room is coming to that realization. And when you come to that realization, you have to be looking at companies like us.
And what is eSentire?
So eSentire is an active threat protection company. We deliver security as a service, and what we do is basically orient ourselves on the inside of the network and look for all the sorts of behaviors and activities that would be indicative of already being owned or hacked.
So we hear a lot lately about incident response, right? And everybody's got products that seek to shorten the time to response, acknowledging that there probably is an invasion and a breach already in process. How do you fit into that?
Well, it's an interesting perspective, because when all this started, we looked at this, we said, we're embedded incident response. We're forward deployed, we're in theater, we got the safety off, and we're looking for bad things to happen and stop them when they happen. So we often don't have the full incident that's manifested itself over several weeks or months, because we keep our customers safe continuously. Having said that, we've actually mapped out a framework. The challenge you have in incident response is context and communication upstairs. You've got C-level executives that as soon as you start talking, packets and all that kind of stuff, they glaze over. But if you characterize it in risk management framework, you look at who the stakeholders are, when you have to involve a regulator, when you have to involve public relations, investor relations, and so forth, lawyers. That's really the bigger challenge with incident response in our world.
So I've seen you from the first time I was introduced to eSentire as what I term MSSP 2.0, maybe 3.0 would be a better terminology, in that unlike your typical security service provider who really is a log management, offloading, outsourcing kind of service, you are actually outsource security. You actually provide security for your customers.
Yeah, it's the protection side of it. So we actually, it's an interesting relationship we have with our customers. The trust level is kind of off the chart. They come to rely on us to defend them, and that happens pretty quickly. As soon as they understand how much visibility we have over all the traffic in their network, they know that they have nothing that compares to that, and they start to rely on us in our decision making. They don't abdicate security decisions to us, but we work in a partnership with them. So you have to have, there's one thing to have notifications, but you have to always have context. So all of our threat analysts in our SOC are always placing context on events that are happening. Do they have a trading partner in China or Russia? Yes, no, okay, that traffic may or may not be legitimate, and it determines whether you take the safety off or not.
I've talked to many of your customers. You've invited me to speak to them in New York City in particular, and I've been really impressed by how that partnership really is there. Give me a feel for the onboarding process and then what the working relationship is going forward with a new customer.
So the onboarding process, I have to describe a little bit about how we deploy. To date, most of our clients have an on-prem data center. So wherever there's an egress point to the internet, like through a firewall, we have to have a sensor. And we take a span port and interrogate all of the traffic. If they have multiple offices with additional egress points and other ISP or service providers, we have to tap in those places as well. We put the sensor in the rack. We help them do that. It usually takes them 2 hours. All the policies have been pre-configured. We have a bunch of standard policies that if a customer doesn't know what their policy is, we can light them up right away and have coverage immediately. So from the time they get the sensor in the rack, which takes 2 hours, we've got our eyes on it and we got it. And then we start tuning it. We need to do traffic profiling over a period of 30 days or 45 days, a business cycle typically. And then we can come in with some additional recommendations on top of that. They very quickly come to understand that we're watching it 24/7. We get alerts. I mean, the data on our East Coast customers is that 60% of the incidents happen outside of Eastern Standard Time Zone. Wonder why? Well, because the guys who are doing it are waking up a different time of day. Now, they're smart. They make it look like it comes to the U.S., but they're hiding their trail. So that's very telling for them, because as soon as we light up the sensor, we see something happening at 2 a.m. and they had no idea. They didn't know what they didn't know until we get in there and start showing them.
So do you have people working at 2 a.m. actually?
Oh, absolutely, 24/7. Yeah.
Now, a lot of organizations say, oh, we can't outsource that stuff because that's our critical data and we can't let it off-prem.
we keep all the data on-prem. We signal our SOC, and when there's a disturbance in the force, we will then we'll go into the actual forensic logs, which we keep on premises. It's actually important to note, every time I talk to someone about forensics, they always think of some 18-month ago investigation. For us, forensics is what happened 25 seconds ago. So we get signaling, and another interesting development over the last 18 months, the signaling we used to generally get was malware oriented, and that was the inbound payloads, and that shifted quite dramatically to non-malware based. Over 40% of our attacks are now non-malware based, and that could be indicative of what stage they're at. Once the creds are harvested, then we actually have to rely on behavior. So what time of day is it connecting? Where is it connecting to? Geolocated? Is there a new protocol showing up on this host? Is there a surge in traffic? And some combination of those behaviors is what signals our SOC, and then they go into the forensic tool, which is like a DVR. So they say that host might be compromised, and they play forward and back the traffic in, like I said, 25 seconds ago kind of window.
What's a customer vertical that you should be talking to today?
Anyone who has a high sensitivity to brand is a vertical, and I have to get a little more specific in that. In our financial services, we have a lot of asset managers that have phenomenal visibility, and them getting compromised would just be terrible for their brand. And that could lead to investors redeeming their positions. Law firms, there's been some pretty egregious attacks, particularly one in Canada with BHP, and it's well published. That was not great for the 7 law firms involved there. You get into IP-based companies, tech firms developing software, just like us, and biopharma is another category. And when you get into the world of extractive industries, oil and gas and mining, they have, while their attackers may be different and have different motives, more hacktivists and more nation state, it's again IP that they're after. And having your website defaced as a large NYSE traded company could be really bad for your market cap, because people always draw conclusions based on incidents. Like, we can talk about Target for the rest of the morning.
Yeah, yeah. So just last night, I was on a panel with the former CTO of the CIA, and he was and he was painting a picture of the need for, basically organizations cannot have the expertise to address the level of threats that we're seeing, and that has to be concentrated in service providers such as eSentire. But I had a picture of, wow, there's a lot of organizations that need that capability. How can eSentire scale to handle all of that?
Well, you've hit on the number one problem. We actually would be in the same category as the customers competing for the talent, but we have a pretty good onboarding process, pretty good recruiting process. A lot of our, so for us to scale, we grow linearly. Every time there's a new host that's surfing the internet, we have additional load on our SOC. We effectively, customers can inflict wounds on themselves, and that grows as people are allowed to surf on the net. So we have to grow, and we have a formula to do this. We onboard junior SOC staff right out of college and university. We have a pretty rigorous training program. They're set on their own after about 6 weeks, and we typically have a 5 out of 6 success rate. It's not for everyone, because you have to be part air traffic controller, part network engineer, and part World of Warcraft. You have to have that mindset. You got 12 planes in the air, and you've got a lot of stress in the situation, and you might be the best security analyst or packet inspector, but that part of your personality never gets tested until actually put on the front line. So we do a pretty good job of screening and profiling. So it's not only getting the skill, it's getting that personal temperament that we have to identify. And we typically bring on 5 or 7 at a time and run them through a boot camp, so to speak. So we go to CSI colleges and universities and certain computer science programs where they've got the specialty. I would say that we in this nation and in Canada are not training nearly enough with that focus. So the talent access is going to be the biggest issue. When you look at as a customer in the MSSP 3.0, if we go with that theme, you need the technology, you need the people, and you need the process. And it is a 3-legged stool. And if you try to do it in-house, you might be able to get the people, but you'll be hard pressed to keep the people, because it's such a competitive industry. I hear this all the time from CISOs when I talk to them. They say it's like cybersecurity 101. They come in here, they get trained up, and they get hired off by one of the big consulting firms for twice the salary. They just can't keep the staff. So we've created quite a unique situation where we're located in the Waterloo area. We have phenomenal candidate flow out of all the universities, a lot of very technical part of Canada. In fact, something like 25% of our patents are coming out of this little region that we're in. And it has proven to be one of our secret weapons, so to speak. We don't have the data leave the country, so we don't have the issue of residency. We have a very exhaustive background checking process with our staff. Things that customers don't even think of on their own, like, you do criminal background checks, yes, and then you do credit checks. Why? Because of motive, right? So we have to do these things regularly. And then once they start thinking about having to do that themselves and trying to tool up their own SOC, it becomes a pretty easy decision. I would submit any company under 50,000 employees. It's almost a no-brainer. When you get larger than that, you still have different dynamics at work, and generally much larger organizations with much more infrastructure on premises. I mean, these are generalizations, yeah. But the access to the talent, having it always available, we're paid to make sure it's available. We're paid to respond in X number of seconds or minutes, depending on what the scenario is, and it's peace of mind is what our customers get.
Do you have a regional focus? Are you able to provide your service around the globe?
Yeah, we are in about 50 countries right now. Wow. A lot of our clientele are headquartered, or their domicile is in North America, and their branch offices, if you go financial services as one category, you'll have a head office in Manhattan, another office in San Francisco. London will probably be the second biggest office. Hong Kong or Singapore are the third one. So that's very normal for us to deal with all those different scenarios. Deployment-wise, it's interesting. Some of the countries, they have phenomenally restrictive import regulations, and we've turned to virtual machine images as a way around that. South America, a couple countries, we've dealt with 6-month delays with our sensor sitting in customs, and we can shoot over an image and have it built and running in a day using a virtual machine. There are some limitations on speeds in a virtual environment. It's not all roses, so to speak, because of the nature of doing packet interrogation. You have to get really low level in the operating system, and you lose that access with the virtual machine overhead.
The U.S. federal government has made a big deal out of continuous monitoring, though we've found that their definition of continuous monitoring is a lot different than what you actually do. You actually fulfill the sorts of things they're talking about. Do you see any pickup inside government agencies?
Absolutely. The whole, you're referring to CMAS, and there was an RFP that closed last fall, and it was awarded to 5 large contractors, and then basically they've won the right to bid on subsequent business. And if you read the original documentation around it, it was that all the civilian agencies of the U.S. federal government, 62% of them were not being watched continuously. And it's kind of the fear that there's a vector, from the Albuquerque Social Services Office or something into the mothership that needs to be monitored. So they came up with a good idea. They said you need to have sensors in the network. You need to have heads-up risk displays and security consultants available 24/7 to interpret the results. The part that I found missing in it was, well, if you see bad stuff, you need a mode or ability to interdict. And that's what we built our company to do. It's great to know something bad has happened. This is kind of why we try not to use the term MSSP, because they're generally reporting after the fact events through log correlation and other techniques which have some efficacy. But they, the horse is out of the barn. So we got 2 animals. We got the horse out of the barn and the elephant in the room. And the horse is out of the barn, and you find out at 6. I was just at a company with one of the largest MSSPs, and I get the reports at 6 at night about something that happened at 8 in the morning. I said, "Are you kidding me? Our customers would fire us if that happened," and they're meeting their SLA. So we just have a completely different view of it. In fact, we are complementary into a lot of the MSSPs, which might surprise a lot of people. You need the active threat protection, but you also need logging for compliance. Sarbanes-Oxley and all the controls that you need to be able to certify on a quarterly basis is a great use case for SIM and log correlation technology.
So where do you see the next stages for eSentire?
Well, we're growing very rapidly. We grew 146% year over year, which surprised me. I had to pinch myself to see if that one was real. We've expanded quite aggressively in the North American market. We're actually considering a move into Europe right now. The interesting developments there around the EU data breach, possible pending data breach legislation creates a phenomenal opportunity for us. one of the challenges, if you read into that, is that you'll see that they have to have an ability to notify within 24 hours. But if you don't know what you don't know, you don't even know you've been breached. And the punitive side of it, with the the €1 million fine or 2% of revenue, is stunning. And we believe in the industry that there's going to be a lot of pushback to get that in. But the point is, they're basically creating the awareness. You got to do something about it. In our home market, which is the SEC regulated registered investment advisors, on January 30th, they came out with an announcement that starting in September, they are going to start examining for cybersecurity, incident response capabilities, and basically readiness. And for us, we're just saying, okay, maybe we just got to double down on that market, because there's 9,000 of these entities that we could be working with. Shortly after that, FINRA came out and said that they would like to follow on and sort of work in conjunction with the SEC. So you've got some interesting drivers there. The Fed and Treasury are at a capability level that's quite substantially higher, and they're also bigger entities. So the the examinations that they're going to do, are they going to compare to what they expect of, say, a Citibank or a JP Morgan, or are they going to right size it for these organizations? Because it'll go back to, they'll say, well, we don't have the talent and we don't have the budget for all of this. I think it's a great opportunity for us. The other interesting development was with the critical infrastructure announcement on February 12th. I'm sure you've read that document. I've already had to give a speech about it a couple days ago at a different conference than RSA. And it really, if you go back to 2002 when the original one came out, it basically talked about, build the biggest, baddest fence and nobody will get in. This version, 12 years later, says, you got to do all that, but assume you're going to get hacked, and have an incident response process, have a communication method up to the board and governance and risk committees to bring them into the loop early on. And it goes into the whole category of risk management around business continuity planning and so forth. It's now moved into that category, which is good. The document is a little bit weak on specifics, but it gives a very generalized guidance that I think is a step in the right direction. It's oriented around critical infrastructure, which financial services is. There's a group called the FS-ISAC you may be familiar with. We've been working with these folks for over a year, and it's a great relationship. We consume their threat intel. We publish new stuff that we find to them. And we've actually are working on a pilot project to exchange advanced threat information in a newly developed language called STIX, Structured Threat Intelligence Expression Language. And STIX describes all of the behaviors or indicators of compromise that you would see in all of these advanced attack methods, which, by the way, I call the new normal. It's not advanced. It's what everyone's using. Right. So we could talk about that a little bit later. The idea to be able to get threat intelligence in a machine consumable format instead of basically an email listing allows us to take action quicker. And there's a whole body of work underneath this. MITRE has done a lot of the original work. The industry has embraced it. You'll find a lot of vendors over at RSA on the floor now talking about it. We've been involved with this for 3 years, and we're pretty excited about the future of that.
Yeah, your excitement comes through. I think it's a perfect storm. I want to thank you very, very much, Jay, for coming to explain what eSentire does to us.
Thank you.